The diner smelled of coffee and fried bacon, a comfort for most, but for Daniel it was simply another stop in his restless routine. He was a single father now, 3 months into the role after his wife walked out, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter, Emily. Emily sat in the booth opposite him, kicking her feet against the leather bench while coloring in her notebook. Her golden curls bounced as she hummed softly, a striking contrast to the storm inside Daniel's chest. He tried to smile for her, but every day felt like an uphill climb. The waitress came to take their order, and Daniel noticed something instantly: she didn't smile. She moved quickly, with quiet efficiency, placing menus in front of them and asking in a low, steady voice what they wanted. "Pancakes, please, with strawberries," Emily chirped. The waitress nodded, scribbling on her pad. Then she looked at Daniel with tired eyes. "Coffee, black, and the omelet," he muttered. She wrote it down, turned, and walked away. Daniel's brow furrowed. He had been coming here for weeks, usually after dropping Emily off at school or before taking her to ballet class. The waitress, her name tag read Clara, was always there. Always polite, always quiet, and never, not once, had she smiled. That day, something inside him broke past his own walls of pain. Maybe it was the fact that Emily had started asking why her mom didn't want to live with them anymore. Maybe it was the lonely nights. Or maybe it was the way Clara seemed to carry the same invisible weight he did. When she returned with their food, Daniel couldn't help himself. "Clara," he said gently, "can I ask you something?" She looked startled, almost defensive. "Yes, why don't you ever smile?" His tone was soft, not accusing, genuinely curious. Her hand froze on the coffee pot, and for a moment, silence hung between them. Emily's fork clinked against her plate as she dug into the pancakes, oblivious to the tension. Clara set the pot down, her eyes glistening in the harsh diner light. She leaned slightly toward him and whispered, as if confessing a secret she had guarded too long. "Because smiling feels like lying." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to ask more, but she straightened up, blinked quickly, and walked away. The weight of unspoken pain. The words stayed with him all morning. Smiling feels like lying. What did that mean? What had life done to her? He knew about brokenness. He knew about trying to plaster a brave face while drowning inside. But for Clara, it was more than sadness, it was survival. The next time they came in, he noticed the small details he had missed before, the way her wrists looked too thin, as if she skipped meals. The dark circles beneath her eyes that no amount of makeup could cover. How she always wore long sleeves, even in the summer heat. Daniel found himself watching her, not out of judgment but out of recognition. She was like him, barely holding it together for the world. After paying the bill, he left an extra large tip and a note on the receipt. "Sometimes smiling feels impossible, but it doesn't mean you're not strong. I see that strength in you." When she came back to clear the table and found the note, Clara's eyes widened. She glanced toward the door where Daniel was holding Emily's hand. Their eyes met briefly before he stepped outside, and for the first time, he saw her lips tremble, not quite a smile, but something close. A glimpse behind the curtain. Over the next few weeks, Daniel became a regular. Emily loved the diner, and Daniel, well, he was drawn to Clara's quiet mystery. One rainy morning, the diner was nearly empty. Emily was at school, and Daniel sat alone with his coffee. Clara approached his booth, her order pad tucked under her arm. "You come here a lot," she said softly, almost accusingly. Daniel chuckled. "Yeah, guess it feels familiar. Safe." Her eyes narrowed. "Safe. In a place like this." "Safe because of the people," he corrected. "Because of you." Clara blinked, clearly taken aback. She opened her mouth to say something but closed it again, retreating toward the counter. It wasn't until he was leaving that she surprised him. She slipped a folded napkin into his hand without a word. In his car, he opened it. The words, scribbled in shaky handwriting, made his throat tighten. "I don't smile because the last time I did, he hit me harder. I'm sorry. Breaking point. That night Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept rereading the note, imagining the horrors Clara had endured. An abusive husband, a violent relationship, was she still in danger? The next day, he walked into the diner with Emily, and when Clara came to the table, he looked at her with new eyes. She avoided his gaze, but when she set down the menus, her hand brushed his, trembling. Daniel leaned closer. His voice was low, urgent. "Clara, if you ever need help, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. You don't deserve to carry this alone." Her eyes filled instantly. She shook her head, biting her lip as though trying to keep control. Emily, sensing the heaviness, looked up curiously. "Daddy, is the lady okay?" Clara crouched beside her, forcing composure. "I'm fine, sweetheart, eat your pancakes, okay?" But Daniel saw it, the tiny crack in her armor, the plea in her eyes, the silent scream of someone who had been silenced too long. And in that moment, he realized, helping Clara wasn't just about kindness. It was about survival, because if he didn't step in soon, her silence might become permanent. The day after Clara slipped him the napkin, Daniel found himself pacing his small apartment long after Emily had gone to bed. He couldn't shake the image of Clara's face, her hollow eyes, the way her hand trembled. The words burned in his mind. "The last time I did, he hit me harder." He knew trauma, he knew abandonment, but violence, that was another beast. He couldn't ignore it. The encounter. The following Saturday, Daniel and Emily stopped by the diner again. The morning rush filled every booth, and Clara moved swiftly between tables, balancing trays with mechanical precision. But her eyes darted nervously, as if scanning the room for danger. Then Daniel saw him. A man sat at the counter, broad shoulders hunched, jaw clenched as he stirred his coffee. His clothes were rugged, his face roughened by stubble. He stared at Clara with a possessive glare that made Daniel's stomach knot. When she walked past, the man grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but firmly. Too firmly. She flinched. Daniel stood immediately. Emily tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, stay here, sweetheart," he said, his voice tight. He approached the counter, every protective instinct in him roaring awake. "Excuse me," he said evenly, but his jaw was clenched. "You're hurting her." The man turned slowly, eyes narrowing. "Who the hell are you?" Daniel straightened. "A customer, and a father, and someone who doesn't like seeing women treated like property." Clara yanked her hand free, her face pale. "Daniel, please." The man's lip curled. "Stay out of this." But Daniel didn't back down. He placed himself between the man and Clara, his heart pounding. For a moment, it felt like the diner disappeared, like it was just two men facing off in silence. Finally, the man spat a curse and stormed out. The bell over the door jingled violently as it slammed shut. Clara stood frozen, her hands shaking. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked, softer now. She nodded weakly, but tears spilled anyway. She fled to the kitchen before anyone could see. The truth. Later, when the diner was nearly empty, Clara came to Daniel's booth. Her voice was raw. "That was him, my husband, or ex. I left him months ago. He doesn't accept it." Daniel's fists tightened under the table. "He hurt you." She nodded. "Years. Every time I tried to smile, every time I tried to act happy, he said I was mocking him. So he made sure I'd stop smiling." Her voice cracked, and it worked. Daniel reached across the table, gently covering her hand. "No, it didn't. You're here. You're alive. That's stronger than anything he tried to take from you." For a long time, she stared at their hands, then whispered, "Why do you care?" Daniel hesitated. "Because I know what it feels like to be abandoned. To feel worthless. My wife left me, left our daughter. Every day I feel like I'm failing. But when I look at you, Clara, I see someone who's still fighting. And I can't just watch you drown." Her lips trembled. For the first time, she almost smiled. The healing. In the weeks that followed, Clara began opening up. Not much at first, just small fragments of her story. How she had no family nearby. How she worked double shifts to afford a tiny apartment. How nightmares still woke her every night. Daniel listened. He didn't push. He showed up with Emily, and slowly, Clara began to sit with them during her breaks. Emily adored her, chattering about school and ballet while Clara listened with soft eyes. One evening, Daniel offered to walk her home. She hesitated, then finally agreed. Her apartment was small, sparsely furnished, but tidy. She brewed them tea, and for the first time, Daniel saw her laugh, quiet, hesitant, but real, when Emily told a silly knock-knock joke. The sound hit him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Confrontation. But her past wasn't done with her. One night, Daniel received a call. Clara's trembling voice whispered through the receiver, "He found me. He's outside my building." Daniel didn't think. He grabbed his car keys, dropped Emily at his neighbor's, and sped across town. When he arrived, Her ex was pounding on her door, shouting threats. Daniel stepped in, shoving him back. "This ends tonight," Daniel growled. The fight was quick but brutal. Daniel wasn't a trained fighter, but fury fueled him. Neighbors called the police, and within minutes, the ex was handcuffed, screaming as officers dragged him away. Clara collapsed into Daniel's arms, sobbing. "It's over, it's finally over." He held her tightly, whispering, "You're safe now. I promise." New beginnings. Months later, the diner felt different. Clara moved with a lighter step. The shadows beneath her eyes began to fade. And one morning, as Daniel and Emily sat in their booth, Clara approached with their order. For the first time, she smiled. It was small, fragile, but radiant. A smile not forced, not faked. A smile born from healing. Daniel's chest ached as he looked at her. And Emily, beaming, clapped her hands. "Daddy, look," she finally smiled. Clara laughed softly, tears glistening. "Yes, sweetheart, I finally did." Daniel reached for her hand across the table. She didn't pull away, and in that simple moment, they both knew. Sometimes broken souls don't just survive, they find each other, and in doing so, they begin to heal.